Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is episode 29 of Superannuated Starman. If this is your first time listening, please consider going back and checking out some of our older episodes. We've come a very long way, and we would like to hear your opinion on how far we've come and what we can do to get better.
Wait, speaking of how far we've come, you said this is episode 29?
It is, yes.
Which means it's our 30th episode?
Correct.
Ooh,
and still haven't
party
found
noises.
a replacement for Chris yet, huh?
Not yet. So, you've heard their names. This is Chris Duerksen and Cory Braucks, who are my co-hosts. I'm Sean Ryan, and we have a great episode for you today. We're going to be talking about a game that is near and dear to my heart. This is Super Turrican for the Super Nintendo. This game has a great... it has an amazing soundtrack. So enjoy, and when we return, we will discuss the history of Super Turrican. So the history of Turrican, that all starts with a German video game publisher called Rainbow Art Software. And really, it's more about one person in particular in that company named Manfred Trenz. He was responsible for some really great early PC games like The Great Gianna Sisters, Catechus, and both of those games have their own unique and interesting history, and both involved legal troubles from Nintendo and Activision respectively. He was also involved in and is more or less associated as the creator of the first game in the series that we're discussing today, Turrican.
Now, can you tell me what a Turrican is? Because I tried to Google it.
It's one of those little metal knives that the ninjas throw, I believe.
No, I'm not letting you have a callback. No. I knew exactly where it's going. Okay. Anyway, so I had some difficulty figuring out the timeline here, so I'm going to do my best with this next part. I mentioned Rainbow Arts, which is credited with publishing the first few Turrican games. However, 5 members of Rainbow Arts left the company and founded Factor 5 in 1987, serving as the inspiration for the company's name, those 5 members that left. Trenz was one of those original founders. And I mention this because the Turrican series was first released 3 years later after Factor 5 had been established. But as I said, Rainbow Arts published the first 2 games. So I'm guessing there must have been a deal in the works that allowed them to publish those titles, even though Trenz no longer worked at that company. The first game in the series, simply known as Turrican, was almost entirely developed by him and was released on the Commodore 64 in 1990, with a sequel, Turrican 2, releasing the following year. In 1992, Trenz released a remix of Turrican 1 and 2 for the NES called Super Turrican. Not to be confused with the game that we're covering today, Super Turrican for the SNES.
Why would that be confusing?
This was on like the Amiga too, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Okay. I just want to double check.
Did you say why would that be confusing?
Sarcastically.
Yeah, so Super Turrican released in 1992 on the regular Nintendo, and then Super Turrican released in 1993 on the Super Nintendo. Go figure.
On the Super.
So now, Sean, before you go on, have you ever played the NES Super Turrican?
I didn't know it existed, and I'm a fan of this series, and I had no idea it existed at all. Do you have anything else?
Nope. Just I was just curious. Something worth checking out later.
I've thought about it, but I have played Turrican 1 and 2, not as a kid or anything. I've played it later in life through other collections, but we'll get to that in a bit. Turrican on the SNES is the 5th game in the series, developed by Factor 5 and published by Psychic Corp in the US, Hudson Soft in Europe, and Tonkin House in Japan. It released in May of 1993 in North America, September 3rd in Japan, and has no specific month or date listed for Europe, except the year 1993. Super Turrican was originally developed to fit on a 6 megabyte cartridge, but due to the publisher's demands, they had to fit it on a 4 megabyte cartridge. Because of this, a lot of the game's content had to be cut, including various enemies and an entire world. Some of the removed content was restored in a special edition of the game called Super Turrican Director's Cut, originally included as a pre-installed game on the analog Super NT console that was later released on the Turrican Anthology compilation. So that console, the Super NT, it's essentially a more modern Super Nintendo / Super Famicom. It released in 2018 for $190 and plays actual cartridges. It also has SD card support, but I don't know if that's for other media or if it's for ROM images. And it includes 1080p HDMI output. Following the game's popularity, Super Turrican had a direct sequel that released in 1995. Once again developed by Factor 5 and this time published by Ocean Software. The composer for both this game and Super Turrican was Chris Hulsbeck. And I want to mention him specifically because I think that he did such an amazing job, and I can't wait to talk about the music in some of the later segments. And I know for a fact that we have at least one German listener out there. Max, if I'm butchering this guy's name, please let me know. And if you ever played this game when you were younger and want to talk about it, we can do another side quest episode. But back to the history. One game I haven't mentioned yet is Mega Turrican. Mega Turrican is considered by some to be the more superior or even better version of the game that released on the Sega Genesis / Sega Mega Drive. And if you haven't caught the connection yet, Factor 5 was a German company where they had the Mega Drive and not the Genesis. And so the game was named Mega Turrican and kept that name even when it was released in North America. And if you want to experience this game today, you can find it on the Turrican Flashback compilation, which has the first 2 Turrican games, as well as Super and Mega Turrican. There's also the Turrican Anthology Volume 1 and 2. Each of these titles has 5 Turrican games on there, including the director's cut of Super and Mega Turrican, which I just previously spoke about. These were previously unreleased unless you spent a couple $100 on the analog Super NT. They were supposed to come to the Virtual Console, but Nintendo decided to halt that because they had never previously been released on a console, which is weird considering that Star Fox 2 had never been released on a console, and yet they decided to release that with the Super NES Classic.
But guys, Star Fox is kind of like their brand though, isn't it?
Well, sure, but would it have cost them any money to throw that up on the servers? I mean, I'm minute amount.
Nintendo with online services, I think we've discussed at length with the dumb things they do.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. They are not on the ball when it comes to that.
They don't like money.
But guys, I think that's going to wrap up this segment. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss some of our memories. So enjoy some more music from Super Turrican. So Super Turrican was a rental game for me. I never owned it as a kid, although I did purchase a cart-only copy for like $20 in, I think, around 2010, because I lived in Missouri at the time, and there was a used game store, and I remember going in, and there it was, and it was super cheap, and I basically just kind of fell over myself getting a hold of it because I never saw this game really out in the wild, and I loved this game so much as a kid. I've always been a big fan of Contra and Mega Man and side-scrolling running guns in general, and Super Turrican was just one of those games that I always wanted to rent. If I had seen this game in stores, I probably would have begged my parents for it, but man, did I ever play the hell out of this game, renting it constantly to the point that my parents almost wouldn't let me because I had it so much and so often. And as a kid, it was hard, just stupid hard. And it's hard today. And I never legitimately beat the game. I always got as far as the end boss of the second stage. If you guys have played it already, I don't want to spoil anything if you guys haven't gotten that far because we haven't really talked about it. But the end boss is this weird face that slowly scales up in size as you fight it. It's really unique and really weird, but that was always my wall, and I never got past it as a kid.
Did it remind you of all of Star Fox?
A little bit for the Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just a little, just a tiny little bit.
Just the face.
Yeah.
Nothing really else about it.
Well, yeah, it's Andros the Face Lord again.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's literally just a face, but yeah, the fight mechanics, nothing at all else. Just a little face and a little mouth and.
So anyway, the second stage's boss was just always too much for me for whatever reason, and I didn't see the ending in the game for quite a while, and I didn't rent it as much until I was reading through a gaming magazine or maybe one of those books that you got through Scholastic Book Club, like there's 1,000 cheat codes in this book. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. They were a thing. You'd get them and they'd be like, oh, this is the 1,000 cheat code extravaganza for the laser system.
Yeah, and then you had to spend most of your time just sorting through all the garbage games that you'd never use any codes for. But still, they were just so chocked full of just random numbers and letters. But yeah, anyways, go on.
I now had an invincibility code, and I had a level select, but I never legitimately beat it. I did a quick Google search to see if it was ever mentioned in Nintendo Power, like a player's corner or anything, as that's where I got the bulk of my gaming news back then. And while Super Turrican is mentioned in Volume 48, it's Super Turrican on the NES. I don't think they ever talked about Super Turrican for the Super Nintendo. So, guys, that's all I have. I played through the game as a kid. I never beat it. I had to cheat to get to the ending. And I'm going to save all of that for our replay, or my replay, you guys' first time through. But do you guys have any memories of this game, seeing it anywhere or hearing about it ever?
I honestly did not even know it existed until you brought it up.
All I remembered was the box art. I could be misremembering this, but I was a comic book collector, and I swear I remember seeing the Strife-looking dude who's on the box art on the back of comic books or something like that. But that is literally it. I never saw the game, never knew anybody that had it.
It's such a shame because this game, to me, is just so good, and the music just really stands out as one of the best. And
yeah,
really,
the music is great.
Yeah, it's such a hidden gem. To me, it's a major hidden gem because you never hear anybody talking about this game. It's just so good. But if you guys don't have anything else, let's go ahead and take another break. And when we come back, we'll discuss replaying this game today.
Or playing it for the first time. So I'll go ahead and get started about playing it in 2023. This was my first time playing it. I never even saw any gameplay or anything like I mentioned before. So this was a brand new experience, but I was just right away, I was immediately thrilled and confused and a whole mixed bag of just what is going on in this game. Because my very first impression of this game was great Super Nintendo graphics. Gameplay is kind of like a mashup of a few other games, and feel free to chime in if I'm missing anything here. But obviously, remind me of Contra. The difficulty, the difficulty was kind of Contra mixed with Metroid. Like I just there's so many like it could just be because of the ball rolling thing, but to me this reminded me right away. I'm like, oh, this is like Metroid, but also the
dude's
difficulty.
Silhouette is very Metroid-y, isn't he?
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's got some Metroid sort of vibes, and you roll into a ball, which you get to roll around and blow stuff up as a ball. So that's kind of Metroid-y, but they used it in their own unique way. So I mean, like, I'm not saying that they ripped off Metroid at all. This game seems like it had a lot of influences from lots of other games, including Metroid, but also like the difficulty in the stage.
I want to mention something real quick, Chris, before you get
Yeah.
too much further. So, like I talked about in the Contra episode a few episodes back, in Europe and specifically Germany, there were laws against video game violence where it came to human beings shooting and hurting other human beings. And that's why Contra was called Probotector. And the Rambo-esque looking guys were changed to robots, and so were all the enemies in the game. So that's probably a major influence as to why this had this sci-fi bend, and your character is a robot. I assume he's a robot. He looks like one.
I would assume so too, yeah. And the fact that every time that you die, which happens a lot, you blow up. So you have a little series of explosions. But also drawing from other games, it kind of reminded me of like I don't know why I feel this way. I'm just going to spit it out. Kind of gave me some Castlevania vibes as far as like the difficulty, the platforming. I really don't know why. I can't put my finger on it, but it just does. I mean, like, because the levels are difficult. Not only are the bad guys hard, but the platforming to me was challenging, especially in some of the second stage, which is the
sewers.
The sewers. Yeah, the platforming was difficult. The enemies that they're kind of hard to see. But no, back to the whole melting pot thing though. This game just kind of took a lot of things from and also, stupid as it sounds, this game even reminds me of Mario, which I mean I compare every game to Mario.
Because you're weird.
Yes, but I mean you can jump on enemies like Mario style, which not all enemies, only ones that are springs. I don't know. Like I have no idea why you can jump on some and not others. But then even like the ice level kind of reminded me of Mario too. But everything reminds me of Mario. So anyways, back to the gameplay of this game though. The choice of power-ups. Man, what game was it that we were where you get to choose what kind of weapons you have and you depending on what power-up you picked up.
Gunstar.
Yeah, was it Gunstar?
Gunstar Heroes? Yeah.
Yeah. This kind of reminded me of that in the sense. And for everybody who does not have any idea of what we're doing, might as well go ahead and get, now that I puked out all the that weird meld idea. The point of this game is that you start off and you have like a Mega Man style blaster. Is it your arm? Is it Samus style? I can't even tell.
I don't know, man. It's a gun.
It's a gun.
Okay. But yeah, you start off with what do you start off? Like what is the default?
It's just a weak little blaster.
Yeah, you barely use it ever.
Okay, yeah,
so
because as soon as you get one power up,
it's almost not worth mentioning.
Yeah. So you start off with a default Mega Man generic nothing pea shooter, and then randomly throughout the levels, hidden little Mario boxes, platform things, where when you shoot them, power-ups pop out.
So in the manual, it's called the extra block. And
Right.
sometimes they're hidden, and when you shoot it, you get one of 3 different types of weapon upgrades. You have a red, blue, or yellow orb, and the red is a spread shot. The blue is this laser that's called the mighty laser, and the yellow is the bouncy shot.
And each of those little mega blocks can contain a variety of all 3 colors of those. And the cool thing that I thought was really, because I did look up the manual to figure out how this game worked, because I was confused right out of the gate. So Sean just said that you have the 3 types of weapons. Each weapon type can be leveled up 5 times. So like say you get 5 little red power-ups and to level up your spread shot, and the more you level it up, the more it spreads, the more damage it does. I think the quicker it shoots too, but the better it becomes. Now, if you were to go switch a blue one, that switches you to the mighty laser. You still have your red spread shot powered up in your back pocket, but you just can't switch to it until you find another red power up. But it still stays that level 5. So assuming you don't die too much, you can just run around, and every time you switch weapons, your weapons will be maxed out. So that way you are just, every time you find a different power up to switch your gun type, you are just going out there out. And when you die, you only lose, instead of your gun starting completely only over, you only lose 1 power rating of your weapons. So I thought that was actually, for such a difficult game as this is, I thought that was actually very nice of them, because otherwise
it's really fair.
Yeah. Because how much harder would this game be? Which we haven't even begun to actually discuss the gameplay yet. But this is a very challenging game, so it's nice that you get a lot of variety of your guns, and as Sean mentioned, spread shot. The mighty laser is just a straightforward, and you're shooting a straight line, and the more you power it up, basically the thicker your laser becomes, and the more powerful, and it can just melt bigger enemies and melt bosses. And then the bounce, is it called bounce shot?
Yeah.
Sounds exactly like its name. And the more you power it up, the more rapid your shots become. And anytime they hit any surface, they ricochet. So like in cave systems, tunnels, tight areas, anything with like platforms or anything weird around, your shots will literally just be peppering the entire screen and just obliterating everything. And that it's pretty fun. And then besides that, you have a secondary fire utility, I guess you could call it, which is a freeze beam, which does not actually, I believe the manual says it does not damage anything, but what it does is that it just freezes your enemy. You can also use it to find the hidden, what are they called? The mega blocks?
You're talking about
Item
the
box.
extra block.
Extra block. Yeah, you can use your freeze beam to find extra box
eventually.
Yes, yeah, and every extra box we should say, they act as like a hidden platform because there are so many secrets in this game. So the mega item box act as a platform in the air that you can use to jump to another platform. A lot of times in this game, when you jump onto one, there's probably, like, if there's a big open area next to you, there's probably another one hidden in there, and you can use that freeze beam. And when you're using the freeze beam, you can't walk around and use the freeze beam at the same time. You can use the freeze beam and then use your D-pad to basically sweep the area to make, you can go like a full almost 360 with this freeze ray.
I think it's important to note, Chris, that your character cannot aim up or down.
Yes,
and
yeah.
The only way that you can get anywhere, up or down like that is by using the freeze beam, but you don't push up or down. You just hold left or right and it'll pan,
It's
just
so
say,
weird.
Yeah, it'll just pan,
I wish
from left all the way
it
to
didn't
right.
do that. Yeah. And because of that, I hardly use the freeze beam at all. But yeah, so you can use the freeze beam, freeze enemies, doesn't do damage. And then on top of that, the last part of your kit is Sean, you're gonna have to fill me in here because I don't remember what the manual said these are. But I mean, obviously there are extra lives that you can find, but then there's the also in those item boxes there are the. Is it some sort of like invincibility shield or like a?
Yeah,
Okay.
you have like a little invincibility shield, and there's also two more moves or weapons that you have or that your character has. And the
Oh
first one's
yeah.
called the Smart Line. When you push this button, what it does is that to either side, the left or right of you, will shoot out a wall of energy, and it just destroys just about anything in its path. But once it hits something, the wall is gone. Next, you have what Chris was talking about earlier. You turn into this almost a morph ball like in Metroid. It's called the energy wheel, and you duck and you press the jump button, and Turrican, as your character's name, he will just start bouncing around and just bombs will be going off everywhere.
And he goes fast. Like you just
Yeah,
start
you're
you start yeah.
uncontrollable basically.
Oh no, I got pretty decent controlling it. You just have to be. It takes a lot of quick reflexes to actually aim where you're going because as soon as you hit the jump button, you jump out of it and you become your
Yes.
dude again. But while you're in it, you take off kind of like Sonic, where you just go and you have a little energy bar, which is basically your timer for how much you can spend in the ball. And while you're in the ball, every time you shoot, you use your shoot button, you're dropping these little flame, I don't know, pillars, basically like a landmine
They're
kind of deal.
missiles and bombs that you're shooting out.
Yeah,
You're in the air or
yeah.
not.
And also, and then the neat thing with that little ball thing, like I mentioned, you can't jump while you're in the ball because if you do, you come out of ball form. But if you go off a ledge and land onto something, you have a pretty good bounce to you, so you can bounce and jump, or not jump, but bounce to something else. If there's aiming, if there's something to bounce to, which there are special spots where it looks like, it's kind of designed for you to do that. And speaking of special spots, we should mention the amount of one of the things that I love in all games are secrets and discoverables and hidden walls, and this game is chocked full of them. And we discussed this, off the air like a week ago. We're talking about how many unlockables not unlockables, but secrets to find. And it's a pity because in each level you do have a set amount of time, and there's a timer going down, and they do not give you time to explore every nook and cranny. Like you want to, this is one of those games where you want to explore every inch, and you're like, oh, there's a platform up there. How do I get up there? There must be a hidden item box somewhere, and you want to spend 5 minutes trying to figure out how to get there or backtrack. So maybe you took the wrong path or something, and you just don't have time to do it because most levels, I think, what you start with, is it 500 seconds or is it even less than that?
Well, not every level has the same amount of time. Some of them have up to 900.
Oh wow.
And I don't think it's a 1 for 1 second in the real world.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. They are not full seconds. They feel like half seconds. And yeah, like this game, I'm already jumping to the end here, but just because of that and because of how many secrets there are and how much limited time you have in each level, I feel like if somebody spent a lot of time playing this game over and over, you can really have a lot of replayability value just by all the hidden things that you've probably missing in every single run, because there's just so much detail and the difficulty level and the secrets and the power-ups and everything that this game can change every time you play. Like I there's no way, like I'm sure there are dudes doing speedruns who do this and play it the exact same way every time through. But for somebody like me, there would be no replay that would be the exact same from one to another. This game is just
There's definitely an optimal path that you can take through the level so that you can get those extra lives just for safety's
mhm.
sake. But you're absolutely right. There's so many ways to go about the level that unless you have memorized the map, you're not going to be taking the same path.
Yeah. And also, and even just coming down to luck of the draw, there were so many times where I'm like, oh, I got my mighty laser up to 5, and I just wanted to keep it at 5 and just keep that as my main weapon. and there's a spread shot power up just floating in your path, waiting for you to jump into it that you can't avoid unless you're just sitting there watching the time go down. Because that's the other weird thing. All these power ups that come out, they float up in the air. The power ups slowly rise up until they're unreachable.
I don't
So,
recall that happening, honestly.
oh really? Did you
Yeah.
just grab them right away every time?
No, I just don't recall them moving like that.
Yeah, I
Oh.
don't think I spent enough time to notice that at all.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, they slowly float towards the ceiling. So if you want to avoid one, you can wait for it to move out of your way, kind of. But like I said, each level, time is precious. So, you know,
Yeah, what
most
a
of the time,
risk reward system right there.
yeah. A lot of time, there were times where I was like, I'm not picking up that spread shot. I'm not picking up the spread shot, and I'm just sitting there waiting for it to float out of the way. Because let me ask a perfect segue. I'm all over the place here. I apologize. What were your guys' favorite guns?
I had no preference, honestly.
The bouncy shot was my favorite.
Yeah, weirdly enough, I like my favorite was the laser. My second was the bouncy shot. The spread shot, which is so practical because you can't shoot in angles and everything, and there's so many enemies that are coming from weird angles or coming from above. The spread shot makes sense, but I just didn't like it. It is the weakest of the projectiles, but
Well, that's the
It's-
trade-off, is that
yeah.
you get that spread, but it's considerably weaker than the mighty laser, obviously.
yeah.
And then the bouncy shot is kind of your middle ground where you might get those angles that the spread shot can easily hit, but it's more powerful when it does land those hits.
And one thing I noticed, because at first I tried playing without save states, and this game is tough. So the very first boss that you come to, I can't remember. How would you even describe it?
The first boss is just basically a robot, just a mech.
Right, and he's not hard. It wasn't that difficult, but there's one time I fought him. I think the first time I fought him, I had the mighty laser. And I just melted him. And then the second time I fought him, I think I had spread shot or something, and it took me forever to kill him. And he ended up wiping me. He killed me like 3 times. Like that's how big of a difference there are between the different gun types. Is that like the mighty laser just melts through people, and the spread shot just peppers them, but it can take a while. Which for most of the regular mobs in the game, that's all right. But there are certain mobs that seem to have more armor or more hit points, or like the bosses where,
So
they may
Chris,
only be vulnerable in one spot.
I have a question for both of you, and then let's kind of segue over to Cory. But my question for you, Chris, is what was your favorite and least favorite stage?
Oh man, I was gonna complain. Like there were definitely some remember the episode where Cory was complaining about Castlevania and about how there's just stages that just are there just to screw you? There are definitely stages in this game. Even like the very, I completely forgot. This was like in the first stage, where you had to jump between the waterfalls or something, and the wind starts blowing. My least favorite stage is there's a return to that because I like once you get past it, the wind you don't see the wind anymore for a while, and then eventually you're jumping up some. Is it jumping up tree branches? Right? You're jumping up this mile high tree,
Something like
but
that.
but in order to get from one branch to another, you have to wait for the wind to change direction, and you have to jump and let the wind catch you and launch you up in a diagonal. Otherwise, you're getting thrown the wrong way.
So are you saying
That
you didn't like it?
that
You're
was my
not. You're
least.
not.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
your
That
least
was
favorite.
that was
That
my
was
least
Really?
favorite because
that was
Okay.
my that was my favorite one
it
because
was to me.
I really like that mechanic. I thought it was really cool.
Not only
It
that, but it was like that's the whole level. Like when you're done with that like tree portion, you just
Yes.
move on to the exit and it's over with. And like you can use all the little backpacker guys as footholds too. It's like that one really didn't bother me.
I just got bothered because, like, at first it took me a minute to get. I don't know. It's not really a pattern with the wind, but it kind of is.
It's audio cues.
Oh, how did I miss that? I see. I was so focused. I was looking at the which by the debris flying around. I was watching
No,
the
you just
debris.
listen for it.
Oh, I'm an idiot. But
That's
yeah,
exactly what I did.
the other frustrating part was there was a I can't remember what level this was either, but there was one room where you had. I finally got through the level, and at the very end of it, you had to jump up this platform. As soon as you go into this room, the walls start closing in on you, and you have to like jump up before you get smushed. And I died. I don't know. I wasted probably at least like 5 lives in one playthrough.
My complaint with that level is that some of the platforms you can jump up and jump through them,
Yeah,
and then
and the other ones you
others
hit
you
your
have to
head.
jump up and around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What is
yeah.
this?
I can't remember exactly where it's at. I think it's like 2, 3.
It's somewhere in stage
Is
2.
so like the sewer area?
Yeah.
Okay.
It might
Yeah.
be past right when you finally get out of the sewer area, which also I'm never a fan of. I know like most games have sewer levels.
All right, Chris, let Cory talk, man.
Okay, I'm
You
sorry.
keep talking over and over about like I don't like this and I don't like that. What did you enjoy? Anything?
Me?
Yeah.
That's well. See, sorry, I was focusing on the nitpicky things. I love all of it.
You've
The
done nothing but complain for like 10 minutes straight.
no. Well, yeah. I suppose. Yeah, I just made the assumption that everything is good, but here are a few bad things. No, everything in this game is good. Even the stuff that I don't that I was complaining about. There's such small little areas like the whole wind thing. It's just a small little section, but the levels are great. The platforming is great. The enemy variety is really good. I mean, like um there are a ton of variety of enemies and just little mobs running around. The soundtrack, which I know we were all waiting to talk about the soundtrack. The soundtrack is amazing in this game. But yeah, sorry. I've been talking way too much about this game because I've got a lot to say about this game because this game is just such a full.
Yeah, we noticed.
It is a like Sean. I know you said you love this game. This is like one of my new favorite games because it's such a complete package. Like this game literally has everything that appeals to
Well, take
anybody
some of
that likes
that.
Super Nintendo games.
Take some of that and let's put that in your final thoughts.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
we're still talking about just trying to
Cory.
play through it. So, Cory, what were
Yeah.
some of your favorite and least favorite stages in the game?
I don't even know anymore. My least favorite was probably the first stage or like the second or whatever you want to call it, like 1, 2 or whatever. Just because the bugs, like the robo
Yes.
Yeah.
flies or the
Yes.
robo bees or whatever you want to call them,
And it's
by
like a
far
hive of
like the
them.
most
Yeah.
annoying enemy like in the game. Just they're very small hitbox and they constantly like dive bomb you. And you can avoid damage by like just crouching down. Like they never really seem to hit you when you're in a crouch position. But the trade-off of that is like since you can't angle your gun, you like there's just no way to shoot them when you're crouching. So you just kind of have to sit there and wait for them to move around. And it's just a very tedious thing, and I really, really did not enjoy fighting those creatures. So that's probably like my least favorite.
I'm really
Um,
surprised because my least favorite was the ice winter ones with the bottomless pits.
I like those. I really like. It took some time to learn, honestly. Like it was a very trial and error kind of stage, but it was something far more avoidable in my opinion.
I
So
can't believe what
after
I'm hearing.
Yeah, like honestly, I didn't have that much of an issue with it. Plus, like I'm a big fan of like kind of Christmas time, and there was a lot of like jingle bells going on in the background, so it was kind of a pleasant experience for me.
Up until that point, like there's so much great platforming. And here, this stage, the ice stage, it kind of took all that great platforming and made those minor consequences not very fun. But Corey, what was your favorite stage? And then from there, just kind of tell us about your experience with the game that you've been playing.
You know, I really did like the ice level. The sewers really bothered me. Honestly, like other than the bugs, the first couple levels are fine. I really didn't have any issues with them. Just that particular enemy really made me hate those levels. But other than that, like the design on those was really well done and everything, and they're fun and fine and easy to run through. The sewers was another matter entirely, like because you're in this whole like machine shop sort of situation where there's conveyor belts and running pipe water and everything is just pushing you constantly and there's a lot of confined spaces and I really did not like those stages at
And
all.
this and the steam
Like
pipe, the burst steam pipes
yeah,
that
it's I
go
mean
into
I
flame.
can handle that. That's fine. But like it just the forced pathing on those, especially like the clock in this game is really the biggest enemy because you
Yeah.
just don't have enough time ever to really like get your bearings or explore or do anything of consequence. So the fact that you're being railroaded a lot in those pipe levels really just made that clock all the more dangerous. And there were points where I really did just run out of time and it probably made those levels to be like the least acceptable for me to be playing through. Like I really did not like them at all for that case.
Can I
Um
chime in?
yeah, sure.
Sorry, but during that sewer level, I stumbled across a secret area where there were like tons of uh, what do you call the gems or the little orange
Diamonds.
balls, the diamonds?
Yeah.
Um, I stumbled across a secret area in the sewer area where there's just tons and tons of diamonds to collect, but it's such a big secret area level that actually got lost in it, and I couldn't find my way back out. I got lost in the sewers a lot, and the time I well, there's plenty of things to kill you in the sewers, but if those didn't kill me, the timer would get me. But the sewers, it feels like a very cramped area, but there's a whole lot to there's a lot to get lost in down in the
Yeah, the
sewers.
the problem is like so you some of the pipes like they're secrets you can pass through them and like there's a lot of narrow spaces where you can use like your Samus ball mechanic to roll through. So there's a lot going on. It's just that like you're constantly being shunted like left and right by these like gouts of water and stuff and it's
Yeah,
just very it's not intuitive at all and it's just very annoying to play through and really like the sewers were just not a I was not a fan of like that whole like machine shop feel. I just didn't like it.
yeah,
And
I
that's
hate
that's
sewers.
fair. That's fair. I
Uh,
totally get what you're coming from.
yeah, and I mean I like the snow level. I didn't have any problem with the tree. The tree was pretty easy to me. The tree also had the thing where if you went to the left instead of the right, you could fall down the trunk and get like a whole bunch of extra crap too. So that was like a fun little Easter
Did you
egg.
find that on? did you find that on purpose, or I found that?
Yeah, I found it
completely
just
on-
by trying to figure out which direction to go. I was like, well, I'm gonna go left and see if there's anything this way, and then
Yeah,
I
I
slid
felt.
down.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I thought at first I'm like, this is either going to be a seat because you fall far.
You
I'm like,
fall the
I'm
entire
either,
length of the level.
yeah,
Yeah.
the entire time you spent climbing up there, you fall that entire time. So you're falling for like a good 4 seconds of game time. And I was just thinking, like, as soon as I started falling, I'm like, this is either an awesome secret or I'm dying at the bottom of this.
Yeah, so it was like a fun little thing.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind that. I didn't mind the snow level. The
I
end
like the Yeti
levels.
things.
Yeah, like the end level with the whole like HR Geiger like aliens like feels a little overplayed to me. Um so
Man, how many of these games have we played that have had these alien-inspired levels in them?
at least
Yeah.
3 so far that I can think of. But it's that sort of thing where it's like, it's a good game. I enjoyed the game. It's just that it the controls felt a little finicky to me, and they're just things that I was just getting hung up on a lot of the time too. So
Well, it's definitely not going to be everybody's cup of tea. So, Chris, I'm really glad that you were clearly excited about this game. You talked for almost
yes.
like 20 minutes straight.
Sorry.
So, when I replayed this game, like I said, I've already played it as a kid and I got pretty good at clearing out the first two worlds. So, I had a very good idea about how to move through the game and I knew where some of the secrets were already. So, that wasn't a very big deal. But it wasn't until I finally beat that second boss that I discussed earlier. And then it moved on to the third world where I mentioned probably my least favorite level was those ice stages. And Corey, again, it just blows my mind because you've always talked about how you do not like insta death,
Well, but I
due
mean,
to
the whole game has insta death mechanics. Like you can fall between the waterfalls in like the
sure,
first stage. I mean, like yes, the ice level does it more than the other ones, but the flip side of that is the ice level also has like less enemies as far as I could tell. So it was
true. It's
just
basically those mastodons basically just pushing around those giant
yeah, so it
snowballs.
was it was really just less crap for me to have to think about. And because there's like I said, the time constraints on this are so brutal that for me to take my time and not have to like be constantly worrying about like being shot or pushed or something, I could just kind of take my time and get through those stages, and it was just less of a frustration to me.
That was one of my points I was going to make is that I think the game is very manageable if you can take your time, but you can't with the timer. Only in some of the stages do you really have a little bit more flexibility to go about kind of exploring, which we haven't even discussed. At the very end of the world, after you beat the boss, a screen comes up and tells you how many of those diamonds you collected, which Chris
Yeah, and it
kind of
shows you how
touched on
many
them,
lives you have in the level too.
how many lives you picked up and how many secrets you missed.
Yeah.
And it's a lot every single stage.
I
But
mean, I thought that was really cool as well, and then it just kind of also rubbed your face in it how bad you are. So
but I think that encourages you to now go back. It's like the game
right,
is saying, "Hey, you missed all this stuff. Try it again and try something different and explore the area a little bit more." It's such a good game. I could go on and on and on about it. And I'm gonna just kind of briefly sum up how my playthrough today was. I feel that the colors are vibrant and the game just looks great, even on a big screen TV. And we discussed a little bit earlier. One of my frustrations that I had as a kid and even as an adult is when you hit that extra block and all those power ups come out, and then because I didn't wait around, I didn't know that they floated up like that. I wasn't about to wait because of that timer, so I just kind of had to take a weapon that I didn't want to use and just go through the rest of the level.
it's the Castlevania problem. We've discussed that at length before, where it's like crap will
Yeah,
fall when you hit the candle or whatever, and
yep.
then the dumpster weapon comes falling out, and you're just stuck with it at that point.
Yeah, you lose your knife and now you get the holy water or something like that.
Yeah.
The enemy variety I think is great. I think that the traversing through the level is really good. You do a lot of left to right, you do a lot of right to left, you do up, you do down. It's not just your typical platformer where you're going left to right, very Mario-esque. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah, they really did. The levels are small too. That's the thing. It's just there's so much like upward verticality. They really just made use of the space they had available to them.
So gameplay wise, it is just as hard as I remember it to be, but I think it's fair. I think the game is very, very balanced. You get a lot of health pickups throughout the level, and I think you get a pretty generous sized health bar, even though some of those enemies
Oh,
just melt your health away though.
I wish there's a way to make your health bar get power ups for your health bar to make it longer.
Well, you can wish in one hand, but I've been pretty strapped for time lately, and I didn't get the time to dedicate to this game that I really, really wanted to. So I did use cheats. But that said, I only used the level select. So I would play through an area until I lost all my lives and all my continues, and then I got my game over. And I'd have to restart, and I would just skip to that point and just play it again, just kind of practicing that way because I wanted to, as genuinely as possible, beat this game finally after all these years. I wanted to beat it.
That's
And
better than what I did.
what did you do? Did you use save states?
Save states. I had to.
Well, I mean, and that's fine. Nobody should be ashamed of that kind of stuff. And anybody out there that wants to play this game, it's hard. It's a very hard game.
Well, and we're also not 12 years old with an entire summer free anymore. That's kind of the other problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I'm
And
I'm I'm not ashamed of save states, but I wish to play it to get a better feel for it. I wish I would have done it the way that you just described and used the level select rather than save states.
And I'm going to talk about the cheats really, really quick. So there's invincibility, which I didn't use, but it's really, really easy to use on the Super Nintendo. It's just pause, LLL, RRR, LLL, push start, and then you're back to it. There's the level select, a sound test. You can skip straight to the ending and the credit scene. And then one cheat code that I did not know about that I thought was really, really funny was you can reverse your own controls. Why the developers put that in there, I'll never know. But you can reverse your own controls, and then you have to use that same code again to restore them to normal.
But do you have to do it backwards?
No, you don't have to do it backwards, but you have to put in that same code, or is it? It is backwards. Okay. Yeah, I didn't even catch that. So it is a different code in order to restore your controls. We talked about it. I'm going to kind of talk about that last stage, that very alien-esque.
I was hoping we were going to talk about that more.
It's happened so many times now that it's not just the style of the level has been copied from Alien. The enemies have as well. There's eggs. There's literal face huggers, which will attach to your face and drain your health. There's what looks like xenomorphs running around.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
there's
final
literally
boss,
like the actual. It's a xenomorph. It's not like a xenomorph-esque. Like it's literally.
It totally is. Yeah.
yeah, it's not even inspired. It's just completely ripped off at this point, which I think is a good way to kind of segue back to what I was talking about in the history. So this guy, Trends, he made 2 games previous to this, and I talked about them. They were the Gianna sisters and Catechus. And so both of those games got in copyright trouble. The Gianna sisters was basically a ripoff of Mario Brothers, and Catechus was a ripoff of, I think it was R-Type.
Now, did you play either one of those?
No. And I didn't even know this going into the game, but having done so much research, I caught one Easter egg. And in the intro and the credit scene, it talks about the planet Catechus, which is under attack by the machine. And that was a little homage to his previous game, which I thought was pretty cool. And I never would have put that together if I hadn't done all this research on the game. So guys, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Or
Wait,
have we
so-
kind of...
Did you mention? We mentioned the xenomorphs running around. The final boss is a giant xenomorph.
Yes, and
Yeah,
very
that is.
easy.
Yeah, I was super surprised on how easy it was. Maybe I don't know what weapons you guys use to kill the boss. When I did it once and done, and I used a spread shot. I don't think I chose I didn't go in there thinking I'm going to use a spread shot, but that's just what I happen to have. And to me, it kind of worked
Honestly,
out because you're able just to shoot the boss from literally anywhere there you're at.
like I really didn't have any issue with like having a specific gun. I don't know if you guys had any hangups about that really. Like it sounds like Chris did, but
No, no, it
I
wasn't a hang
just
up. It's just I like when I have a
I
weapon
didn't
I
matter to
prefer.
me. Like they're all effective was kind of
Yes, yes,
the
yeah,
thing.
they are
Yeah.
all super effective. Yeah,
I mean, like even the spread shot you talked about how it like does less damage, but like if you get in someone's face with it, every one of them pellets hits, so like it
yeah,
still kills pretty quickly.
yeah.
So, guys, anything else?
No,
Um. Oh, one thing I wish would have been super awesome. Another wish is if you beat this game, having unlock a mode that didn't have a timer on it, so that way you can just explore everything. That would have been cool.
I think
I would
not
love to play
having a
this game without a
timer to
timer.
begin with would have been great.
So, if you put in the invincibility code, it turns off the timer.
Which is like
That's kind of cool.
cool, but at the same time, like then I can't die, so it just kind of cancels out the whole need of the timer.
But if you want to just spend that time focusing on
Yeah, if you
finding
want to
all
just
the
look, or
secret
like if
walls
you
and
want to just
yeah,
explore, I guess. But I don't
exactly,
know.
go museum mode on it basically.
So, let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how we feel about this game today. Is it worth a replay? Stick around and we'll let you know. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that music. So, this is our final segment with our final thoughts. Chris, why don't you start us off and let us know what you think? And just kind of going off of the rest of the episode, it's clear that you really enjoyed this game, but is it worth to everybody to take a look at? What do you think?
Definitely, 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 definitely. Let me make one clear thought for the first time in this episode. The way I was explaining my playthrough is the way I felt as I was playing that game. This game is just such a barrage of everything. It really it just keeps you entertained every second that you're playing it. There's always something to keep an eye open for, always something to shoot, always something coming at you, always something to find. This game is I think this super well done. I would definitely recommend. I mean, it is difficult. So, I mean, like, if you want a challenge, this is great. If you are trying to get your kids into games, retro games like this, I would not recommend it for children. I didn't like, I wasn't even going to attempt to show this to Gibbs. But for anybody who loves retro games and side shooters, like, this game is fantastic. And the soundtrack was beautiful. And like I said, the enemy variety was awesome. Thank you so much for introducing me to this game, Sean.
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on this game, but I want to hear Corey's before I dive in.
Honestly, I guess it's a little more lackluster. Um, I thought it was a good game. It was fun. It certainly took up a couple hours of my life. I don't think it was anything really like genre defying. Like it was just kind of a fun side scrolling game. if you are the kind of person that enjoys like side-scrolling shooters like Contra or Mega Man or anything like that, I would definitely recommend it. Um, the equipment variety, we said there's three types of weapons and everything, and there's power-ups and all that sort of things. I think that it does kind of call back to some of those like old school like Genesis and Nintendo games, especially like Gradius and that sort of thing. So that was a lot
Hmm.
of fun for me. And there are like just a bunch of like hidden sections and false walls and things of that nature. And because you can do your whole like Samus like spinning gyro ball mechanic like that opens up even more areas. Sometimes I think it's actually to the level's detriment because it is easier to get lost, especially like in the sewers and stuff. But overall, I enjoyed it. I would recommend giving it a shot if this is like your kind of game. It's nothing that I am going out of my way to like convert the masses with, though.
I am one of those guys that's a convert the masses because I think that this game does so much so right. And it's kind of how I felt it was kind of the answer to Gunstar Heroes. So I think that Gunstar Heroes takes a lot from different games and does all of it excellently. And I think that Turrican does the same thing. It takes so many different aspects from so many different games and just kind of puts them all together and dials it up to 11. And so I've got a little bit more, but Chris, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like Corey was talking about, like if this is your style of game, the reason, and I mentioned this in the last episode when we're talking about Star Fox. I've got a kid. I don't have a whole lot of time to devote to um, video games, so I really enjoy games where I can beat them in an hour or two, rush through. Basically have like the rush mode where you just get to plow through everything, and I get to that nice feeling of accomplishment done in an hour or two, where it just feels nice and complete. And you know, so yeah, I should mention, yeah, this is a fairly short game. Wouldn't you guys agree? It
Yeah,
didn't feel
there's
that
only
long to me.
If
there's only
you
Yeah,
can get
12
through it like
levels.
in a one through, yeah, it's
yeah.
like 4 levels. So
So yeah, and I love short bangers like this. So this is right up my alley.
And if you don't have $50 to spend on an authentic SNES cart, plus getting the Super Nintendo and everything that takes to set it up, get that collection on Switch that I mentioned. It's the Turrican Flashback Collection. It's not that expensive. I think when it's not discounted, it's only like $20. And there's a lot of niceties that come with that collection. So you can change the aspect ratio to fit your screen however you would like. You can stretch it if you want to that 16:9 ratio, which I think looks pretty ugly, but hey, you do
Hmm.
you. You have that option. You can also do color palette swaps. So if you have difficulty seeing, there's a lot of different quality of life improvements so that maybe a different palette swap will help you identify things a little better. Likewise, you can also do button mapping if it's just easier for you to play that way. And last but not least, we discussed this, it has save states. So if you don't have a ton of time, you can do like what I did, where I used those save states only to just kind of, or I didn't use save states on this game. Um,
Do like
I
what I
used
did.
yeah, you can do it like Chris did. I used the cheat code. That's what it was. There are cheat codes, and there's even a menu which tells you what they are. I went ahead and I played through those levels as hard as I could, as well as I could, and then when I couldn't do it anymore, I just used that cheat code to go back. But I guess I could have just used a save state at the very beginning of the stage and just done that to practice through it.
That's kind of what I did.
However you do it, who cares? A lot of people playing these games are probably adults in their 30s and soon to be 40s, if not older. And that time just isn't always available. So experience this game however you can because it's such a great game and it's worth taking a look at. The music alone is outstanding. If you
I will
absolutely
say, yeah, there's some bangers in this game.
Yeah, if you're like, you know what, I'm not going to ever have time to play this, get on YouTube and just listen to the soundtrack because it's such a good soundtrack.
And
That
diverse.
it's very diverse. Yeah, there's a lot going on it. And it doesn't feel like that music would line up with a run and gun. You're a robot just mowing down legions of bad guys, but it sounds so good. And I hope that everybody out there really enjoys it as well. Guys, did you have anything else you wanted to mention before we wrap this up?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Well, everyone out there, you can find us on Twitter at ReviewByte. That's review BYTE. But a lot of people are jumping ship with Twitter. So I've made accounts on Spoutable, Mastodon, Co-host, and all those links will be in the show notes as well. We're on iHeartRadio, and please join our Discord. We get 1 or 2 people just about every episode, and we get some interaction now, but we'd love to have more.
And there's a section if you want to recommend a game for us to play. There's a place to come in and just say hello and drop a suggestion for a game and come check it out.
Yeah, and as far as suggesting our next games, talking about our next game, so we are planning to cover Metal Gear Solid for the original PlayStation. That said, we've all got very busy lives and we might not have everything and everyone in place. So if it's not Metal Gear, we'll be discussing Mortal Kombat 2.
Ooh.
One of
awesome.
those 2 games we will be covering. So Chris, Cory, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to play this game. My life was crazy as hell, but I finally got a chance to sit down and knock it out. And everyone out there that listens to us, thank you. You're the reason that we do this. We are just a couple of guys sitting around talking about video games, but it's nice to know that there's someone out there listening. So thank you for all the comments you make, the occasional emails that I get. Like I said, join us on Discord and let us know what you think. Guys, did you have anything else?
No, if you want to find Chris, he's probably at the developer's house of Super Turrican trying to convince him to make another one. So check there.
Well, Chris, you can always try out the sequel, Super Turrican 2.
Yeah, I'll definitely. I'm planning on checking out more in the series.
But for everyone out there, thank you so much. We've been Superannuated Starman.